Henry Bailey thought he'd seen everything until a 6-year-old girl in a red sweater walked into his glass-walled office, handed him a handwritten resume, and said, "I need a job." His morning had begun like countless others, early, efficient, structured to the minute. By 8 a.m., he was already reviewing quarterly projections in his corner office atop the glass tower he owned. His suit was crisp, his espresso untouched, his schedule packed with the kind of meetings that had consumed his life for the past 15 years. At least until his assistant knocked and opened the door without waiting for permission. "Sir, there's someone here to see you," she said awkwardly, holding a small sheet of paper. "It's a little girl." Before Henry could respond, the door opened wider, and in walked the most unexpected visitor of his career. She couldn't have been older than 6, with light brown hair slightly tangled and calm brown eyes that seemed far too old for her face. She wore a red sweater, denim skirt, and scuffed sneakers, with a worn backpack on her shoulders. Without hesitation, she walked to his desk, stood on tiptoes, and placed a single piece of paper down. Then she looked up and said, as clearly as if this were the most normal thing in the world, "I need a job." Henry stared at the paper, a child's attempt at a resume written in large, uneven letters. "I can clean. I'm quiet. I don't cry in front of people. I can help. I can learn." Stars decorated the corners, and a shaky heart sat next to the word please. He knelt beside his chair, his voice softening. "Why are you here, sweetheart? You're a little girl. You don't need a job." She stared at him without blinking. "My mom is dying," she said with a calmness that made his chest tighten. "I have to help her. We don't have money. If I work, maybe she can stay alive." For a moment, Henry Bailey, the man who had built empires and crushed competitors, couldn't breathe. This little girl had walked in alone, with a mission, coming straight to the top. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma. Emma Miller." That was the moment his world began to change. Henry sat Emma in the oversized leather chair across from his desk, her feet dangling above the floor. "Emma, do you know where you are?" She nodded matter-of-factly. "You're Mr. Bailey. You have lots of money. My mom said the people with money are the ones who can help when no one else does." Her directness left him stunned. "Can you tell me what happened to your mom?" "She's sick. She doesn't tell me everything, but I know it's bad. She used to be strong. She was a nurse. Now she can't work anymore, and the hospital said it costs too much." Emma's voice was clear, rehearsed. "We had to leave our apartment. Now we stay in one room, and she sleeps most of the time." Henry felt something clench in his chest. He had grown up poor, but not like this. Never 6 years old and knocking on a CEO's door. "Does she know you came here?" "No. She would have said no. But I looked up your name in a newspaper. I know your building because it's big and people say you fix things fast. So I thought maybe you could fix this." Henry walked to the window, staring at the vast city below. He thought of all the people moving through it every day, quietly hurting unseen. When he turned back, Emma was swinging her legs slightly, waiting. "You're very brave, Emma. Most adults wouldn't have had the courage to do what you just did." She shrugged. "It's not brave. It's just what you do when you love someone." Her words hit harder than she could have known. Henry's mind flickered to memories he'd buried, walking away from people he'd cared about, chasing status and control. His father in the hospital 20 years ago, asking him to visit more often. "Just once a week, son. I miss talking to you." But Henry had been closing the biggest deal of his career. "Next month, Dad, when things slow down." The call came 3 weeks later. His father had died alone. Here was this child, standing in the ruins of her life, still choosing love over fear. He knelt again, eye level with her. "Let's go see your mom." "Really? I'm not promising everything, but I want to meet her, and I want to help if I can." The drive to Mercy Clinic felt weighted with possibility. Emma sat quietly in the back seat, directing him when asked, her backpack clutched tightly in her lap. The clinic was modest, gray building, faded signage, windows too small for proper sunlight. But to Emma it was everything. "Room 12, please," Emma told the nurse at the front desk. "She's my mom." They walked past worn tile floors and peeling paint until they reached the door. Emma paused, her small hand on the handle. "She's really tired. Sometimes she doesn't wake up when I talk to her." Inside, the room was dim. Sarah Miller lay pale and thin in the hospital bed, for lines trailing from her arms, heart monitor beeping steadily. Despite her exhaustion, there was an unmistakable strength in her face. Emma walked straight to her side and took her mother's hand. "Mom, I brought someone. He's the man I told you about." Henry placed Emma's resume on the bedside table. "I don't know if you can hear me, he said softly, "but I met your daughter today, and I don't think I'll ever be the same again." "She used to work a lot," Emma explained. "She helped people, but when she got sick, no one helped her. That's why I came to you." Henry knelt beside the bed. "You did the right thing, and I'm going to help her now." Within hours, Henry had arranged Sarah's transfer to a private hospital and assembled a team of specialists. Everything moved at his pace: aggressive treatment, private room, round-the-clock care. But on the third day, resistance emerged. Dr. Margaret Thornton, the hospital's chief administrator, requested a meeting. She was a stern woman in her 50s who had built her career on protocol and procedure. "Mr. Bailey, I appreciate your generosity," she said, reviewing Sarah's file. "But we have policies about charity cases. This woman doesn't qualify for our foundation's aid program. She has no insurance, no family references, no social worker advocacy. You're asking us to provide hundreds of thousands in treatment based on the word of a child." Henry felt his jaw tighten. "That child walked into my office and asked for help. Her mother is dying. And that's tragic. But we can't set a precedent of accepting any sob story that walks through our doors. Our board won't approve continued treatment without proper documentation and financial guarantees." "Then I'll guarantee it personally." Dr. Thornton leaned forward. "Mr. Bailey, with respect, you don't understand the long-term implications. This could go on for months, years. Are you prepared to fund a stranger's entire life?" Henry stood slowly. The question hung in the air, and for a moment he felt the old him surfacing. The man who calculated risks, who made rational decisions based on data and projections. Then he thought of Emma's resume, the stars drawn in the corners, the shaky heart next to please. "She's not a stranger," he said quietly. "She's family, and family doesn't abandon each other." Dr. Thornton's expression softened slightly. "I hope you know what you're doing." "So do I." That evening, Henry found Emma in the family lounge, drawing a picture of 3 figures holding hands. She looked up when he sat beside her. "The lady doctor didn't want to help Mom, did she?" Emma asked. Henry was startled. "How did you know?" "I heard her talking to the nurses. She said we weren't worth the trouble." Henry felt anger rise in his chest. "You are worth everything, Emma. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Emma studied his face carefully. "Are you going to leave us too?" The question pierced him. "Never. I promise you that." She leaned against his side. "I'm scared." "Me too," he admitted. "But sometimes the scariest things are the most important ones." Sarah's condition began to stabilize. The treatments were working, slowly but measurably. Her oxygen levels improved, her blood pressure steadied. It wasn't recovery yet, but it was hope. Emma rarely left her mother's side now, only stepping away when Henry coaxed her to eat or rest. She had filled a notebook with drawings, flowers, houses, families of 3. On the 6th day, as Henry sat reading quarterly reports in Sarah's room, Emma approached him with a folded piece of paper. "I wrote something," she said shyly. Henry unfolded it. In careful, practiced letters, she had written, "Dear doctors and nurses, my mom is the best person in the world. She took care of sick people before she got sick. She never gave up on anyone. Please don't give up on her. She still has so much love to give. Henry is helping us because he has a good heart. He could be doing important business things, but he sits with us instead. That means we are important too. Thank you for trying to save my mom. Love, Emma." Henry's vision blurred. He folded the letter carefully and cleared his throat. "Emma, this is beautiful. Would you like me to make sure all the doctors see it?" She nodded. "I want them to know we're not just a charity case. We're real people." That afternoon, Henry personally delivered Emma's letter to every member of Sarah's medical team. He watched each of them read it, saw their expressions soften, witnessed the moment when Sarah Miller stopped being a case file and became a human being they were fighting to save. Dr. Thornton found him in the hallway afterward. "That little girl has quite a way with words." "She has quite a way with everything," Henry replied. "Mr. Bailey, I owe you an apology. I was thinking like an administrator, not like a healer. That letter reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place." It happened quietly just after noon. Emma was holding her mother's hand, telling her about the garden where she and Henry had walked that morning, when Sarah's fingers twitched in response. Then her eyelids fluttered. Henry stood motionless as Sarah slowly, painfully, opened her eyes. At first unfocused, then blinking, then turning toward the sound of Emma's voice. "Mom," Emma whispered. "It's me. I'm here." Sarah blinked again and, in the weakest voice imaginable, whispered back, "Emma." The sound filled the room like sunlight. When the medical team finished their checks and the room grew quiet again, Sarah looked at Henry for the first time. Her eyes, though exhausted, held recognition, not from memory, but from presence. She had felt him there. "Don't rush," Henry said gently as she tried to speak. "We're not going anywhere." Emma climbed carefully onto the bed, laying her head near her mother's shoulder. Sarah reached for her daughter, fingers brushing against her hair. That evening, Emma sat between her mother and Henry in the garden courtyard, wrapped in the jacket he'd bought her earlier that week. "She said my name," Emma whispered. "That means she's still mine." "She was never gone," Henry said. "She was just finding her way back." Emma looked up at him. "You helped her. You helped us." Henry didn't respond immediately. He looked at the fading sky, realizing this little girl had changed him more in 7 days than anything else had in his entire life. "You helped me first," he said finally. "You reminded me what it means to be human." Sarah's voice grew stronger each day. She could sit up on her own now, feed herself, hold conversations. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. She had a long recovery ahead, but the immediate danger had passed. Henry had already prepared an apartment for them in one of his buildings near the botanical gardens. Temporary, until Sarah was strong enough to decide what came next, but warm and filled with light. He'd had Emma's drawings framed and hung on the walls. That afternoon, a social worker asked if he'd considered becoming Emma's legal guardian should the need arise. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "If it ever comes to that, I want to be there for her." Later, sitting beside Sarah's bed while Emma dozed nearby, Sarah took his hand. "I know I didn't ask for help," she said softly, "but thank you for giving it anyway." Henry looked at her, not as a man with power, not as a rescuer, but as someone who had needed this connection just as much. "Your daughter walked into my life and reminded me what matters," he said. "I should be thanking you." That evening, as Henry prepared to leave, Emma ran after him and hugged him tightly around the waist. "You'll come back tomorrow, right?" she asked. He knelt down, held her close, and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." As he stepped into the cool night air, the city lights blinking across the skyline, Henry realized something profound. The man who had once built his world on deals and deadlines now had something far more valuable. A little girl had walked into his life and changed its trajectory with 5 simple words. "I need a job, please." And in answering her plea, he had found the only position that ever truly mattered, being someone who stayed. Being someone who chose love over comfort, people over power, and purpose over pride. He had finally come home. This story resonates because it doesn't rely on grand gestures or dramatic miracles. It's quiet, personal, and earned through small human moments. What makes it powerful is the transformation that takes place, not just in Henry, but in how we understand what truly matters. Emma's bravery isn't sensationalized, it's honest, driven by love and necessity. The beauty of this ending is that it doesn't pretend everything will be perfect, but it promises that no one will face what comes next alone. In a world often ruled by distance and distraction, this reminder is both shocking and quietly profound. Love is an action, a decision, a commitment. This is not just a story about saving someone else. It's about being saved by the very act of caring.